Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
We've had some fun technical challenges this morning, but I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So, we are going to talk about a topic that I, in my 100 and probably 70 episodes, have never touched. And I'm so
Ooh.
grateful that I met you because, it's all about finding the right guests to talk about a topic that, that matters to them, but that they get it. So, I was so grateful to have met you through our mastermind community. And I knew that you, and then I also have Josh coming on a little bit later, are going to help us, help educate us and share with us how we can help, especially this community when it comes to mental health. So we're going to talk about this today. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in a second, but just a minute, just to tell everyone just a little bit about, if you don't know who I am, I created Michelle's Conversations That Matter to really elevate the conversation about mental health, to educate us, inspire us with stories from people who have their own lived experience, to clinicians who can educate us on certain diagnoses. So I'm all about turning up the volume and making sure people are talking about brain health. And what I get to do professionally every day is I get to work with organizations to recenter their people. Too many of us are struggling right now because of this pandemic, and that's the work that I love to do, that I get to do every day. And I'm thrilled to do that. So before we dive in, Robin, take a second and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you live, and what you do for a living.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. I'm Robin, and something that's really cool that I realized recently is that who I am, where I live, and what I do for a living is all interconnected, intertwined, which I find to be really special. So I'll first start with who I am. And I'm a 60-year-old woman who spent most of my life, 54 years, in growing up and raising my children in New Jersey. And somewhere around the middle of my 40s, up until my mid 50s. Oh, and I got married, and was married to a man for 28 to 30 years, thereabouts. Somewhere around my mid 40s to my mid 50s, I started getting strange feelings and signals that I was attracted to women. And I didn't understand them. I pushed them aside. I plunged forward. And next thing I know, it's May of 2015. And I had an aha moment and said, "Oh my God, I think I'm gay." And everything changed from there. So I'm one of the few people who didn't really know my whole life and was suppressing it under, I guess, internal homophobia, and as well as just kind of following the heteronormativity of the social world. So here I am, 54 years old, 6 years ago, and I left my marriage. It was very contentious. I did not leave it just because of my sexuality. The last 14 years of those 28 years were really brutal, emotionally abusive. So I left the marriage and moved down to North Carolina, where I live now. And coincidentally, I ended up down here because I came down to continue dating a woman who I met up in New Jersey. So, and we have since broken up a long time ago, but I decided to stay because it's beautiful here and I love the beach. And what I do now, I started a business called Novare International, and I coach women who are coming out late in life, who are doing the same journey that I did 6 years ago. But I had less resources back then. I had very few people, if anyone, to talk to about it, very few books. And so I do one-on-one coaching and guiding and counseling. I do small group sessions, and I also run support groups. I do events, speaker bureaus, you name it, whatever I can get my hands on to help the ever-growing population. And it's a subset of the LGBTQ community of women and men coming out late in life, and all the trials and tribulations that they go through.
Amazing. I can't think of a better person to guide someone,
Thank
right,
you.
who've lived it. It's got to be something that must have been incredibly scary while you were doing it, and now you get to share that with other people, and I think that's amazing.
It is.
Um, you know, you're doing so many things. It's only been 6 years, right? It's only been
Yeah.
so it's like you probably felt like you're drinking from a fire hose when it comes to information and, how do you show up? How do you get to be support for people. So tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you see in your clients, the people that you get to support. Like, what are you seeing in them when it comes, specifically when it comes to their mental well-being and this whole experience of, coming to truth with who they are?
Well, it's frightening. It's really frightening and daunting for every single one of them on different levels. There are kind of two paths. There's the path that I took where I really didn't know I was gay, well, or was suppressing it so severely that I didn't know. And then there are women who knew from a very young age, but for whatever reason, because of religious backgrounds, their family, their upbringing, they absolutely had to suppress it. So they consciously suppressed it. And so they went through their lives trying to do the heteronormative thing, get married, go to college, date guys, have the children, do all those things. And it just got to a point, literally a boiling point for almost every woman I know, where they couldn't take it anymore, that they realized they're not, they go so far as to trying to be bisexual. They're hoping that maybe I'm bisexual, I can still stay with my husband or my partner, and they realize I can't do this. I just can't do this. And for someone to get to that point, to blow up, well, they call it blowing up their marriage, blowing up their marriage, blowing up their family. That's how they feel. To get to that point, you have to be in an incredible amount of pain to get to that point.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the angst that they
Oh,
feel is got to be really, really hard. So when I looked at the data on Mental Health America, it said that when it comes to mental health in the LGBTQ community, 39% have reported mental illness in general in the past year. And that doesn't even account for people who aren't talking about it, right? Those are the people that reported it. And I think we need to think about the other stat, which startled me, from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It said that the LGB adults are more than twice as likely as heterosexual adults to experience a mental health condition, and then transgender individuals are nearly 4 times as likely, to experience a mental health condition. And I think that's very telling, and something that you know it's got to be hard enough to go through what you're going through, but then to acknowledge that maybe it's more beneath the surface that you need to, like, really look at and maybe get support. How do you guide your clients when you're sensing that it might be more? I mean, tell me sort of, how do you support them?
well, I definitely encourage them that if they're not in therapy, that they need to get into therapy. I mean, that is the number one thing. I can guide and support and encourage. I can give them other case studies of other people similar to them. But, dealing with, if someone has grown up deeply, deeply religious and are petrified to come out to their family or to their parents or their grandparents, um, or their abusive husbands, they need to be in therapy to deal with that, and incongruent with what I can offer them in terms of support groups and one-on-one coaching. But if there's something deeper, then that I really strongly encourage them to seek therapy. And there is a lot, there's a lot out there. There are virtual therapies and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of walking them through the journey, and I try to help them with the fear and the guilt and the shame that they feel,
Hmm.
that they haven't done that they're not bad and they haven't done anything bad.
Right.
That it's just, there are seasons in life,
Yeah.
and this happens to be a season that they're passing through. But a
Yeah.
lot of good can come from this as well.
Yeah, I would think that you demonstrate hope for people,
Yes,
that it's possible
absolutely.
to get to the other
Absolutely.
side. And you and I have had conversations about the whole self-love conversation, right? Like how it's so important for you to take the time to love yourself before you start looking into a direction of a relationship, right? Like,
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about how you guide your clients around that, like
It's
transitioning
so
from
important.
a male partner to, okay, now I want to start dating women. Like, what? Give us some
Oh,
insight.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Something that I encourage women to do, and I did not do this, is when they leave their spouses, to give themselves time, some breathing room, to to take this all in. I mean, they may still not be out to their parents or their neighbors or their coworkers, and it takes time. I don't recommend anybody to rush through the process. And in terms of self-love, I mean, that's where it absolutely starts with self-love. You can't love someone else. You can't pour into someone else's cup what you don't have in your own pitcher. And that's something I learned the hard way. I learned through this process of coming out that I'm very codependent. So I literally put myself in a dating timeout. But this is after I had 6 or 7 failed relationships.
Mm.
So I do try to encourage the women. I know you're dying to get out there and experience dating other women, but please take your time, figure out what it is that you love about yourself, and get whole. Make yourself whole before you then present yourself to another relationship, because they won't work. I mean, until you love yourself, other relationships won't work.
Yeah, it's great. It's great advice. It really is. So let's see. I'm looking at the time. I want to be mindful. So let's see. So before we get into ways that anybody can help, because that's something I definitely want to make sure we leave with people, is how do you help a population like the people in your community who are coming out, or what is it we can do? We're gonna walk through some recommendations from GLAAD. But is there anything else that you wanted to share, you wanted to get across to people who may be hearing this and maybe, are interested in learning from you? Anything else you want to share?
Well, I think you need to go slowly. First and foremost, I think you need to get comfortable yourself with this new news, of like, oh my God. I mean, I literally said, holy shit, I'm gay. And then I just started laughing, thinking this is crazy. So you need to get used to the news yourself. And then absolutely, if you have a partner, the next person you need to come out to is your partner, and figure out, what does that look like moving forward? If you have children, so there are an enormous amount of steps that need to be taken when you decide to come out, as a gay or queer woman.
Mhm.
Couples may decide to try to open their marriage and have an ethical, non-monogamous marriage. They may choose to raise their children under the roof, in separate bedrooms, and try to stay co-parenting that way. There are just a lot of different things to consider, and I say, just start slowly, do one step at a time. Start with yourself, get comfortable with who you are, try to figure it out, and then share that with your partner. And I also encourage women too to try not to lean on their partner. This is new news for them.
Right.
It's just as daunting to them as it is for the women that are coming out.
Right.
So to try to find people like myself or support groups outside of their partner to lean on, because they're trying to process the information as well. And they need help. They have mental health issues around this, as well, when this happens. So really, there are so many different avenues that women need to just take their time and do one step at a time, because there are a lot of hurdles and people to come out to. And you don't have to come out to anybody initially.
Mhm.
Um, you need to also, I think, sense your surroundings. Like at work, we just had a really intense conversation in my support group the other night about this woman who wants to start dropping breadcrumbs and start giving hints at work that she's, out, but she's afraid her husband's still on her health plan. What if they, want to take his health plan away?
Yeah.
She's desperately worried about that. And how will people perceive her? How will they welcome her? She's not afraid of losing her job, but she's afraid of losing these coworker friendships.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the support group, and I would think that this is a haven for people. Like, I have a couple of friends who I hope are watching so that they tap into your support group, because just that example alone, to be able to come to this community and talk to them, like,
Yes.
is that really, do you find that adding tremendous value to
Oh
people?
my gosh. It's grown from a small group of like 5 women, and we every single week we get over 30 women that show up, and everybody participates. And the nice thing about working in groups is I love one-on-one, but in groups you get other people's perspectives too. And I don't know everybody's background in the room. So, if someone talks about, how do I tell my children? How do I sit down and tell my children that A, we're getting divorced, and B, I'm gay? And there are other women in the room that have already done that, so that they can say, hey, this is what I did, and this is what you need to look out for. And So it is enormously helpful. I mean, I leave there with my heart full every single time we get together.
Mm.
It's very, very helpful. It's one of the best things I think I have to offer.
I want to acknowledge you because you've created the space that
Yeah,
is helping people. Really, like that's amazing. Like
that's my
you should
purpose.
have your heart full, because if it wasn't going to happen without you creating it, like, and
Yeah,
that's
I guess so, and that's what I do on my podcast too. People write to me such sweet notes and say that I felt all alone. That's the number one thing. I felt alone. I thought I was going crazy. I thought, what? Why am I following women up and down the aisles of Staples? And women say the same thing. They feel that they're not alone anymore, and they get
Mhm.
that same sense in the support group as well. That, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
Right,
This is a real thing.
right.
We
Ah,
don't try to do this. Like, we don't intend to break up our families, and we don't intend to, but that's how it's perceived from the outside. Like, oh, you're so selfish, and maybe this is just a phase.
yeah. Ah, wow. Um, okay, so let's talk about what can people do. Let's talk about what I am throwing up on the screen here, and let's give people some idea about what it is that they could do to help, um, to become an ally. I guess to become an ally or a friend. So we can talk through some of these. I think
Sure.
they're great. So do you want to just share them then, Robin, and we'll just
Yeah. Number one, be a listener. That is great. That's assuming that the woman that's coming out is sharing something with you. But so being a listener, absolutely. I love number two and number three. Be open minded and be willing to talk. Um, Being open minded, you've got to put your preconceived notions aside. You need to put your prejudices aside. Everything that you thought thought you knew and want to believe, you need to put that aside and just be open minded and listen to the person. And the same thing too is to be willing to talk. Excuse me, to be willing to talk. Um, if somebody does, get the courage to speak and share their, it's very intimate. I mean, it's very private information. If they are sharing that with you, be willing to ask questions. Be willing to say, oh my gosh, that must be so hard. How can I help you? Are you getting help? What does that feel like? I mean, just ask questions. Be willing to ask questions. Um, be inclusive and invite. Yeah. Like, we're not diseased, like, we're just
yeah. Hello.
it's
I
interesting.
know.
Like, you're not going to catch it from us if you hang out with us. Yeah, and don't assume that all your friends and coworkers are straight. That someone very close to you could be looking for support. Yeah, in their coming out process. So
Right.
true. You just never know. I mean, and I am amazed at how many women are coming out later in life. I mean, it is daunting how the numbers are skyrocketing, and interestingly, COVID had a lot to do with that. Um, yeah, oh my gosh, anti-LGBT. Yeah, you gotta watch what you say about the LGBTQ community, because there's a really good chance there is someone standing right next to you, who's in the community, or maybe
Right.
their child is in the community.
Right, right. And I'm just going to read the banners in the way. I'm sorry. I'm going to read the last few. Number 7, confront your own prejudices and biases, even if it's uncomfortable to do so.
Yes,
Right.
that's really helpful.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, I openly tell people that I was homophobic,
Mhm.
growing up, and they often say that the people who are most homophobic tend to end up coming out later in life, which is interesting.
Mhm. And then defend your LGBT friends against discrimination.
Yes. Yes, please come to their defense. I mean, that's something I taught my kids when they were in grade school. If someone's getting bullied, during lunch, please come to their defense. So, my goodness, why would you not do that today as an adult? It's not a comfortable position to be teased or mocked. So, stand up and come to their defense.
Yeah, and then the last one here, believe that all people, regardless of gender identity and sexual orientation, should be treated with dignity and with respect.
Yes,
Like,
so true. I
so
mean,
true. It's so basic, right?
yeah, it is basic stuff, and these are things that we're teaching our kids in kindergarten.
Mhm.
Hello,
I know,
so,
so basic.
let's try to practice what we preach and do the same. We're all just human beings trying to do the best we can, and try to live life as authentically as we can and with a great sense of love and adventure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what, who we love at the end of the day. It just
Right.
doesn't matter. And the fact that we do love is a great thing.
Yes. How about it? Right. Like the experience of love in and of itself is a powerful thing. So
Yes,
why would we want to withhold that from any human being? You know?
I know. It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's a confusing time. It's a really, really difficult, confusing time for any man or woman that's coming out later in life. It's just
Mhm.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Tell us, Robin, I have on the ticker here how people can connect with you. Is there anything that you're going to be working on that you want us to know about? And then is the best way to reach you by email and Instagram, like we have on the bottom, or
Yeah,
anything you want to share?
absolutely. The best way to reach me is by email. Coming out later at gmail.com is probably the best way. So if you have any questions or ideas, thoughts, comments, please email me. My Instagram is there. And I do have things coming up actually. On March 30th, I'm going to have my very first Speakers Summit. It'll be a live virtual event where I have 6 or 7 therapists, counselors, coaches, whatever, and they'll probably give a 20-minute speech or whatever, and then people can ask questions. So that's coming up. And I'm also doing a collaboration with Rainbow Labs, which is a youth nonprofit out in Los Angeles, where we take 5 or 6 of my coming out late women and 5 or 6 of the kids coming out late out in LA, and we have a conversation and a discussion about what it's like to come out.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I can't wait. That's February 25th.
That's awesome. That
Yeah,
sounds
really,
amazing.
it is amazing.
I'm sure it's going to help those kids so much to be able to talk to an adult. Like that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
We had a dry run about a week ago, and it was just absolutely amazing. All the
Oh,
women there that showed up, it was a very spiritual, moving, emotional moment. The kids were great.
awesome. Awesome. Any final words of wisdom that you want to share with us today before we wrap it up?
Feel the feels. We can't heal the wounds inside of us unless we feel them, and don't stuff them down. Be authentic to yourself, love yourself, because when we love ourselves, it radiates. Everyone else feels that love as well. So please, just step out of your comfort zone and love yourself.
Amazing. Robin, thank you so much for joining me today
Thank you,
and
Michelle.
bearing
Thank
with all the
you.
technical challenges. I'm so grateful to have spoken to you. You shared a lot of really great wisdom. I really,
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, my dear. And I will see you in our mastermind.
Yes, sounds good.
All right. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye.